Propaganda is the pandemic. COVID, the cult. The jab is the plague. The masquerade for morons. The lawless make law. The liars, the news. Perverts are praised. Cops called. Troops gelded. Wolves flock the herd. But wolves fear bison. And bison fear nothing. Wovoka, the ghost dancer founder, dreamed with Yeshua and foretold the return of the buffalo. Tatanka Witko, crazy horse. Tashunka Witko, crazy horse, saw the red race rising again as a blessing for a sick world. The frog boils slowly, but when the supply lines are slit and the smoke clears, it's sick, stupid slaves against free, wild warriors. The fearful against the fearless. Soft metrosexuals with pets versus hard vets with children. And the red line, our doorstep. Conceived and raped, orphaned and adopted, claimed by Christians, initiated by indigenous, tribally trained, martial arts mastered, PSYOPs and special forces served, decades of duty in DEA and DIA, intelligence inducted, deep state betrayed, Yeshua saved, dedicated to Republic rescue, American exceptionalism, and redemption by God's grace. Welcome. I'm Jeff Prather, and this is the Prather Point, greeting you in both Inde, Apache, and Dakota, because today I am talking about the last ride of the Dakota 38+2. And it is a solemn and sad time and serious for a number of reasons. So last year, if you recall, I did Forgive Everyone Everything. That is from Reconciliation Park, where the Dakota 38 ride ended. It ended on Monday, and after 17 years of Dakota 38 rides through the blizzards, probably the worst blizzard ever this year, the ride is ending. The last 4 original riders are finally retiring. So if you don't know what has happened, I will enlighten you in the Dakota tradition of Wokikushie, which is to remember, to hold someone in your heart. And in 1862, on December 26th, the day after Christmas, President Abraham Lincoln ordered 38 Dakota men hung. Later on, 2 others were hung as well. It's the largest mass execution in American history. The Dakota, there's the Dakota, the Nakota, and the Lakota. The Lakota are the ones you saw in Dances with Wolves. Very strong tribe. Lots of other tribes that have lost their language and traditions often adopt Lakota traditions. They are also called the Tashunka Yate, the Horse Nation, or Tatanka Yate, Buffalo Nation, or sometimes known as the Sate Sako and the 7 council fires, like the 7 chakras as well. And this is a very, very significant time because this is the 7th generation since the conquest. So I know some of you are going to say, why are we talking about this again? This is left-wing wokeism talking. Hardly. I am hardly hippie. However, I went to the Apache and to the Dakota to learn, not to teach. And I learned about forgiveness and compassion and resilience through reconciliation. And we are going to have to as well. So first, I want to say that I am a Wichasha Tanupa by Dakota elder. I'm a pipe holder by Dakota elder. Asa Primo, I was blessed and ordained to pray with the Chanupa. My Chanupa, my prayer pipe, what most people call a peace pipe, is inside this beautiful beaded bag, beaded for me by some grandmothers years ago. And I do pray with that annually at the Chanchasha Upuye, the dried willow time, when the Lakota and Dakota go into the Pasapa, the Black Hills, following the stars. And if you followed my Christian podcasts and sermons, you saw me talking about the Star of Bethlehem and how the Magi followed it. The Dakota do the same thing. But again, American is exceptional because of our exceptional love of life and freedom. We love life and freedom so much that we will fight, kill, and die for it. We love life and freedom so much that we'll send our sons and daughters out to foreign lands to fight, kill, and die for it. And when we are unleashed, and we have not been unleashed as warriors since World War II, we always win because the world has never seen the equal of the American warrior because of our great love for life and freedom. But when we win, we do something no other country in the world has done, and that is we give that country back. Although we have failed to do that with Indian lands and are starting to do that now, for example, in Oklahoma, in America. Part of the heritage that makes us exceptional is our Judeo-Christian and Native. And of course, I've talked extensively about all of them. But again, today, because the Dakota 38 ride just finished, I'm going to talk about that and why it's important. First off, because we're not just Judeo-Christian in heritage, we're also Native. Lots of conservatives don't agree with me, but Benjamin Franklin wrote about how they were always trying to convert the natives, but when somebody went to live with the tribes, they never came back. Benjamin Franklin being the first Indian agents, it's incontrovertible that they based a lot of the United States on the Iroquois Confederacy, the Haudenosaunee, the people of the Longhouse Confederacy, which had been lasted 600 to 700 years before America and was only broken apart by the Oneida siding with the Americans. Finally, the Confederated tribes did not agree, and Oneida sided with the Americans, and that ended that. Shenandoah saved Washington at Valley Forge. L.E. Parker was alongside Grant. There's lots of amazing Native history that you never learn because of Western movies. I'm very conflicted. I love Western movies. I've been in a couple with some real Indigenous folks. Wes Studi, Vietnam veteran, Cherokee Native speaker, Academy Award winner, Irene Bedard. But very few of them are realistic when it comes to Indigenous folks. They just make stuff up to fit the narrative. So it's part of our American heritage. Just like when we beat the Japanese, we then studied judo and karate and other martial arts. The first martial arts students in Japan were GIs after we beat them and we reconciled with them. And I talked about that whole series of movies ending with the Emperor, where MacArthur says we're going to rebuild Japan and then we're going to take the good parts of Japan and incorporate them into American society. It's the same here, except it's been ignored at best for ethnocentrism, at worst for outright racism by the Native cultures that were here. There were towns, cities, villages, roads, farms, all of that. And it's recorded in the early records, but it never gets play because it doesn't fit with the conquest myth. So it's important to understand our Judeo-Christian and Native heritage that makes up American exceptionalism. But it's also important because they are now coming out of the seventh generation pipeline of death and disintegration that we are just going into. And if they can do it, then hopefully maybe we can, although we have certain disadvantages because as the elders taught me, and again, my elders were Asa Primo, the Dakota Uchashak Chanupa, the Pipe Man, and Philip Casador, Beshkun, the Broken Arrow, the Inde Diyin, the Apache Medicine Man, said that the first 7 feet of soil here is the dust of our ancestors. We were here before the rocks were hard. They do not say they came here. They say they were formed here. Like new species are found everywhere around the world every year. And they say your people came later. But I was very much welcomed in. I've been more welcomed in by Japanese Apache and Dakota than by most white Christians into their homes to live. I always say some of the best Christians I ever met weren't Christian. They were Japanese, Apache, and Dakota. So the lesson here is that the guy you see there, Jim Miller, he's a Vietnam vet. He was in prison. He was a drunk. He came out of all of that and survived it. And that's Isaac, his son, talking inside the Nippy, inside the sweat lodge there, talking about how he went to Vietnam. He killed 38 North Vietnamese soldiers. Then he had a vision that he needed to do this ride. He didn't even know about the executions in Minnesota, which means smoky water in Dakota. And so he decided that he had huge trauma from being a Vietnam vet, from being Indian, from being drunk, being abused. He said, I've been abused every way that's possible. But we've somehow got to get past all of this as a people. So this is a people that have been completely decimated, like we are being decimated now. And one Dakota woman said they massacred us, and then they forgot they massacred us. And then they dug up the bones and says, what's this? And of course, the Dakota remember, well, you massacred us here. There's endless stories of tribal massacres. Not saying that the tribes and the Apache and everybody didn't do evil as well. Certainly they did. That's not the point here. And it's not the point that they didn't take the land from somebody else. That's not the point. The point is that if we are going to survive this seduction of evil process, we are going to have to go through the process of sanctification. That process is confession, asking forgiveness, receiving forgiveness, and achieving reconciliation. That's the path of redemption that leads to resiliency. And so Jews, Christians, and natives have all gone through this. And we as Americans are just beginning to go into this now. You've seen Arizona was America's Alamo, and it is fallen. We worked closely with Kurt Olson, Brian Blam, Dan McCulley, working with Kerry Lake, Mark Finch, Abe Hamada, all of them trying to see if the justice system could be retrieved, if it was not totally broken, if it could be rescued. And now you have seen the result. The judge, and I predicted this, you can look up on my Patreon post where I said the judge will walk this out, but it will not go anywhere. And after incontrovertible evidence, the judge caved. And now today, just now, while Mark Elias and Hobbs were asking for $500,000, the judge granted them $30,000. So why is he doing that? Well, I've talked about that before. He has been screw taped, and he doesn't want to be Scalia'd. He doesn't want to be killed with a pillow under his head, or he doesn't want to be solaced. He doesn't want his wife and kids shot like Judge Salas's husband and son were. And the Dems openly encourage violence against Republicans, against the Supreme Court justices, anyone who dare stand against him. He has been extorted. This should not be a surprise. And again, this is what I said all along would happen. Just like I said, I was guesting on American Media Periscope today. They're asking me about nuclear war. And I'm like, no, I do not say nuclear war is coming. Maybe an EMP attack faked by that, but not nuclear war. It is irrelevant. They are winning through other means. And so our longest war was not Afghanistan. People, even military historians, don't know history. Our longest war was the 100-year Indian Wars, where the tribe tribes resisted gallantly and amazingly because their warriors, who were all warrior protectors to defend children and women, were almost unstoppable because their whole concept of being was built up in their moral, ethical foundation of protecting children and women. And so, whether you look at Cochise or Chief Joseph or Tecumseh or whomever, they Dull Knife, the Cheyenne, all of them dragged their women and children along, fighting the greatest army in the world, the American army, and in some cases, like Red Cloud, winning, where they made a treaty. But eventually, they were betrayed enough, as we are being betrayed now. They were drugged up with alcohol and smallpox blankets, as we are being now. And they were finally conquered and subdued and put in areas, reservations like FEMA camps, given no food. That's why in 1862, the Dakota revolted, because they were starving. And so finally, in frustration, watching their children die, they attacked. And in the result of that, then the army was going to hang about 300 of them. And Lincoln, famous for commuting sentences, commuted all but 38, and then 2 later. One of the witnesses testified against 55 of the folks. And that was a mass execution the day after Christmas. So the point of this is to get outside your box and think about another perspective. So people are wailing and whining about the state of our country. And I had Jeremy Brown on last week, great Special Forces Green Beret veteran who is not wailing and whining and has just lost his case. We just saw Carrie lose her case. He's in jail. The J6ers, Jake Lang, they're all in jail. But some of them have been killed, but there hasn't been 38 of them hung, at least. Plus, if you look at Wounded Knee and Sand Creek, as I talk about, there are less massacres now. But these people went through that and have survived that to the 7th generation. And this was Tashuke Witko's Crazy Horse's messages. In the 7th generation, the red race will rise again. It will be a blessing for a sick world. A legitimate vision. Just like Wovoka, the ghost dancer, actually dreamed with Jesus. Of course, nobody wants to say that because they don't want to have an Indian dream with Jesus, where the grass would grow again, the buffalo would come back, but the buffalo are coming back. And of course, it's really not global warming, and it's really not global cooling. Climate's always changing. It's really desertification. It's not large herds of hooved animals moving across unfenced lands, making hoof prints, eating grass, taking in seeds, pooping out seeds, making little puddles and hillocks to renew the land. So the buffalo returning, and in Africa it would be, gazelles and other herds, is crucial. But there is a caravan that follows these folks, just like there's caravans that follow all the illegals coming up. And they arrive by December 26th, which is the date of the mass execution. And it was founded by Jim Miller, the Vietnam vet. And at the beginning there, you didn't see it because Let's Pray goes, hey, I've been abused spiritually, emotionally, physically. I was in prison. I was a drunk. I was in Vietnam. And this has got to change. We have got to fix all this because we're killing each other. We're drugging each other. Same thing that's happening in black ghettos now, but in white suburban houses now. It started with the minorities, but now it's everywhere. And so he said, so it's going to start with me, he said. And I'm always saying that it's got to be an individual effort. He goes, so I am going to ask your forgiveness, and say, I love you all. And the reconciliation is going to start with me. even though he could say, oh, terrible things have been done to me. That's not what he said. He said, the reconciliation is going to start with me. And I love you guys all. Let's pray. Let's do this together. And I want you to join me in doing this hard thing. And so this is how it is done. This is exactly how it is done. And it is being done by a Dakota Vietnam veteran, convicted felon, former drunk, showing us how it is done. Can we do it? Well, we don't have 7 feet and thousands of years of generations on this land. We have less than 200. The Roman Republic took 300 years to fall. And I've talked about that before. We've only been around for a little over 200. So do we have the resilience for this? If we follow our Judeo-Christian and native heritages, we do. But will we? The great call, the kill-off is coming. So that's what I'm hoping you will learn from this. And I hope you will look up Dakota 38. I hope you'll watch the documentary all the way through. I hope you'll watch the young Marine that Jim handed it off to there speak. I hope you'll watch the young guy you saw up there earlier who said, I'm going to keep doing this because my brother's dead and my other brother's in prison, and he's now dead. They're dying off. They killed them off so they can take the land. Exactly what is happening to us is what was done to them. The same sins are happening again. So the Dakota killed, nobody knows exactly how many they killed. They raped a couple of white settler women as well. They killed maybe up to 600, and maybe they lost 75 to 100. So I'm not excusing those crimes at all because they were done out of hatred. But the executions, the trials were just like the trials with Carrie Lake, just like which is one of the few that actually happened, is they were set up. So Jim Miller and those doing the Dakota 38 ride have said, we're going to forgive everyone, everything. Everybody has too many sins. We're going to move forward from here. And after 17 years, and I think today, this the young guy who said, I'm going to keep doing this. And he was really moved, and he doesn't trust white people. Why should he? And now he didn't make it as well. So many of them don't make it. And I've been honored and privileged to mentor a lot of young youth, Apache youth, Navajo youth in particular, and put them through the initiation program and give them scholarships. But it's a long, hard pipeline to come out of, and they are just starting to come out of it now, and we are just going into it. So we can learn from them. Don't need to teach them anything. When everything is stripped from them, that they are returning to their ways. This is Christian revolutionary warfare really here with non-Christians. Is this little Dakota boy helping a little white boy get up and ride bareback on a horse through the storm. That little Indian boy rode 30 or 40 miles in the blizzard, and now he's walking that kid around. This is exactly what happened with St. Martin de Tours, playing with slave kids who were Christian and converted him. This is how it's done. This is exactly what needs to happen. But it just doesn't have your Christian framework on it. Most of you don't know about St. Martin de Tours anyway. But this is the way it's going. And so in 2019, the governor and former Mankato school teacher attended the final ceremony at Reconciliation Park and said, on behalf of the people of Minnesota and as governor, I express my deepest condolences. It took till 2019 for an apology, just like the Camp Grant massacre in Arizona in April. Just in 2019, I think it happened. That long for it to happen. But the apology needs to happen because it's part of the reconciliation process, which is part of the sanctification process, which counteracts the seduction of evil process. It's a human intertechnology process, whether you're going through it through Christian ways or tribal ways, it's all the same. The Day of Atonement or Catholic confession, not so great. One is with everybody, one is just with a priest. So the idea there being, hey, maybe you'll say more. But this organic, holistic approach. And so what they had to do as they're doing this ride is they had to ask white ranchers, non-Indians, for places to stop and put their horses. And a lot of them didn't know about this, but they were very vulnerable. They would have froze to death. They became very vulnerable. Remember my shows last week about talking about how Yeshua sent out the initial apostles with nothing. Don't take a second cloak. Become super vulnerable. That is this. And that is what we are going to have to learn and remember. And so one of the leaders were asking, why are we going to keep the ride going? And one of the elders said that healing is a process. Todd Finley, a Dakota from Medford, said in 2019, forgiveness is a gift. Forgive everyone everything. Healing is a process. Forgiveness is a gift. That's not what you hear from Black Lives Matter. Is, hey, we want equity. We want recompenses. We're never going to get over this. More and more hate. Hate begets hate as dog begets dog. That's fake. And they are helping enslave their own people. This is the way to freedom. And this is now how we are going to win. And we will win, but this is the way it's going to be done. And we can see through the Dakota survivors what it has taken here to do this. And so a Dakota leader said recently, what more can we do? So they have done this for 17 years. They're ending this now. Saying reconciliation has happened. There you can see the non-Indian ranchers, Gene and Dean Krentz, supporting. So obviously they're very well off and rich, supporting the poverty-stricken Dakota, because they both have horses, and horses are very, very sacred. Of course, I have horses. If you get on Patreon, you'll see a lot of my horsemanship you saw earlier where they were anointing the horse, because it ends up with a sacred number of 7 too, because it's the head, the tail, the 4 legs, and then the rider is another tabernacle menorah of 4-legged and 2-legged, both relatives, because both are of the Creator. And my favorite way to pray is on horseback. Used to do that every morning in the Apache way with Harantin, with pollen. So that's why this is entitled Last Ride of the Dakota 38 plus 2 lessons, is to begin to learn these lessons and get out of your box and drop your egos and develop ears to listen and eyes to see and understand. And I've tried to have a couple of Indigenous on the show, and they've pretty much turned me at different times. I've approached several. They've kind of turned me down, and I get it now. I'm really honored from the 70s and 80s to have helped restart the Na'iyas, the sunrise ceremonies for the Apache. Now I look at them and they're so much better than the ones we did. Lots of times they were in Minnetonka moccasins back in the day. But they have to do it. And so I understand they've politely and respectfully declined. Makes total sense. Knew this was going to happen this way. You know, it's like when my friend Wes Studi, when he got his academy order, he goes, "What's about time? Finally, somebody, some Indigenous got something, is being recognized." This is the beginning of rising through reconciliation. This is how you develop resilience. Very important to understand. So they are going to make it. The question is, are we going to make it? Do we have that level of resilience? Do we have that? We don't have that level of tradition, which is why I've been so honored to be welcomed in to those circles and lodges in my life, because it lets you relate to the land in a way that um, no one else can. So that's the importance of that. And so I'm going to keep letting this run. Hope you are encouraging you. And see, here he is interviewed. And he's hugging everybody and saying, "Love you, thanks." And that was great. And someplace in here, he goes, the mayor gives him the key to the city. He goes, "Well, maybe this can unlock a couple jail cells," which is everybody's cracked up. And if you've never been around Indians, they're really funny, especially Apache. But if you read my book, Philip is always cracking me up. So that's a very, very important message. And again, Indian's not a bad term. Comes from Indio, which means in God. So Native American, everybody born here is Native American. You can hear plenty of elders saying that. And a lot of times the young folks will say, "Have you taken everything else and now you're taking our religion to..." The elders don't say that. The elders just say, "Hey, we're the experts in this, but everybody is welcome in this circle," which is why if you ever end up, doing something with me, I'll do it in Apache language. I'll sing actually in Inde. I'll pray in Dakota. Just like if you're in the dojo with me, I will teach in Japanese to honor those traditions. And you'll always hear me say, "As it was taught to me, I tell it to you." That's very important, not to make it up and hippie it and make it whatever you want it to be. So anyway, the judge has closed that door because he has been extorted, Thompson. There will be appeals, but don't expect much, because they have interdicted all of those inflection points, and it's going to become a very dark, death-filled time for real Americans, just like it has been for all of the tribes for 7 generations now. There you see the door of the Sweat Lodge closing, and there's Pine Ridge, the worst. And there's talking about highest suicide rate in the world, $5,000 annual income in Arizona. So there, and I will pause there for a second, and I will look on. I want to see if anybody has anything to say about that. Yes, and they do. So looking here real quick. And Red Arrow Patriot says, "I learned some resilience spending time with Russians who made $100 a month. They taught me so much." Yeah, good. That's exactly the right attitude there. So that's all I see right now. But that's the most important point I wanted to take time to talk about. And, I'm not really interested if you're, telling me, "Well, this is old hat," and I'm not presenting this in a woke way at all. And I'm not showing people who are feeling sorry for themselves at all, and using that to enslave their own people while they're paid off, which is what Black Lives Matter is doing. It's a lot more like Muhammad Ali, who said, "Hey, I'm a Muslim now and I'm not going to fight." I don't know where that came from, but he went to jail for that. He stood by that. So, hey, that's cool. And then when the tribes came and asked him to march with them, he did. So, somebody like that who has a very different Muslim perspective that I do not share, I still respect. And Clay Martin said this a while back, as I respect the Muslims I fought my whole life, because at least they stand for something, where we're not standing for anything. So the result of this 5th generational war win against our U.S. government is now that we are being pimped and pillaged and plundered in every way possible. And that's why Ducey is now going to dismantle the $80 million cargo container wall under the duress of a federal lawsuit, which shows you how much backbone he has, because it's not even a lawsuit. It's just like, oh, there might be the duress of a lawsuit, so I'm going to fold now. So there's going to be lots of cowards, lots of failures, lots of those who run. This is very, very common. Think back to my interview with Pastor Arthur Pawlowski. I said, hey, Pastor, what about all these other pastors who are like, oh, we'll do a mask service and a mask mass, and then we'll do a non-mask mask, and then half of this can be masked and half of this can't, and all of that. And he goes, 95% of them are fake. And I agree with that. I support Clay Clark and his efforts, and I'm always against big church, but I always appreciate the fact that big church lets us have those conferences. But right at the first one, I saw guys up on stage putting tallits over their head, kneeling down, doing exactly what Yeshua said not to do. See that all the time. Just saw somebody going, hey, I'm worshiping Jesus Christ. Well, Yeshua said, pray only to your Father in heaven. People not paying attention at all to what is really going on. But there are small wins and this came from Team America, Georgia, is last Monday, the city of Milton, Georgia, voted unanimously to take responsibility for all municipal elections from Fulton County, Georgia control. This is a crucial little inflection point because, of course, Georgia has a Chinese consulate, which is full of Chinese spies. I think Feng Feng was sleeping with the governor or somebody there when she wasn't sleeping with the congressman, whatever his name is. So Georgia has gotten a lot of attention because there's a lot of medical research there. Of course, the Rangers are there, airborne schools there. But the little city of Milton stood up and fought back. And that's what you're going to see is little groups holding on and hanging on. And this is a city founded in 2006, not very long, 30,000 registered voters making a difference. So it's going to be from the bottom up. It's going to be very slow. The big inflection points are not going to work. If they could steal a presidential election, I had very little hope that they could win a governorship, but the effort is worth making because everybody who doesn't understand then realizes, everybody who got their heads in that lawfare fight goes, okay, well, we tried that. And that didn't work. We went through all of that. We exhausted all possibilities. So that's very important. That's the doctrine of lesser magistrates that Dr. Colonel Green Beret Pete Chambers has talked about hey, when you got to give it the chance to fail. So we are building the resistance. We are in the building resistance phase. How are we going to be in there? Well, 7 generations for the Dakota, 300 years for the Christians in Rome. Going to take a long, long time. But that's okay because, again, it is unstoppable. We will see, because before we lost this our government lost this 5th generation war. The only wars we had ever lost were 4th generation wars, were insurgent wars, were revolution wars, were guerrilla wars, indigenous wars, Vietnam, Lebanon, all of that. So now we are in a nonviolent, ethical, moral, legal resistance in our own country against our own government in every way possible, where we begin to build the resistance by building alternative institutions and align with folks that we have not in the past, but like the Dakota have gone forward and already done this ahead of us. Meanwhile, they're going to groom our children so that they can abuse them and then impregnate them and then addict them and then pimp them. Because that's what this is. This is a pedocrast, pimping, pushing, complete fallen government. It's certainly a fallen word. If you ever were in doubt about Christian doctrine about a fallen world, take another look. It's pretty obvious at this point how fallen it is. Could it be much more fallen? Yeah, it could be a lot worse, like Rome. It could be 38 public hangings. It could be crucifixions lining the streets of DC. There are crucifixions that occur, by the way. You just don't see them on TV. The Muslims have done it just like they do stoning. If you ever want to look at something really horrible, look at Muslims stoning some little girl to death, if that's still on the media anywhere. But again, what they're trying to get across is not to allow for any inflection points to happen. So the inflection point for the Dakota, of course, was the hanging, the hanging of the 38 in Mankato. That became a inflection point that they focused on, just like the planes flying into buildings on 9/11. Inflection points to focus on. J6ers, inflection points to focus on. The Alamo, remember the Alamo, inflection points to focus on. They don't want any inflection points. That's why everything is censored, everything is covered up. That's what's happening. But they're also now saying, oh, there's a MIT technology review reported Saturday that a company called Make Sunsets has successfully launched weather balloons from Mexico that may have released sulfur particles into the atmosphere. So look at this real closely. MIT technology review. Well, we know the most left-wing institutions in America are the universities and colleges. And we know they're full of communists, especially Chinese communists. The company is called Make Sunsets, successfully launched weather balloons, look, from Mexico into the United States, more infiltration. And it says they may have released sulfur particles, not even saying that they did. This is just simply the frog boiling. This is getting you used to the chemtrails. A while back, my family and I were driving someplace, and we live way out in the country, and it was the worst chemtrails we'd ever seen. It was black on the edges and white on the insides. Really, really bad. But this is, hey, we are gassing you from the skies. Get used to it. Just like we are going to groom your kids, castrate your kids, abuse your kids. And then afterwards, I published today, you can eat each other. It's the Human Meat Project that's happening too, while you drink toilet tap water. Some Luke Eiselman, the co-founder and CEO, says it's morally wrong, in my opinion, for us not to be doing this. So trannying kids, raping kids, stealing and lying, that's all fine, but it's morally wrong for them not to be putting particulates into the atmosphere, into the Creator's creation. Of course, the Creator's creation is this great system, this web of life that all is important to work together, that we can never fully understand because we are part of it. We are creatures in the creation. So the best thing for us to do is to enhance our inner technologies, which is what true Judaism, not Zionism, and certainly Christology teaches and native ways teach. There's a great photo there of reconciliation happening there, of them thanking them for everything that has been given there. So a lot of stories out there are talking about the Army planes that received relief from the shot mandate. And so a Texas district judge, James Wesley Hendricks, granted a preliminary injunction for 6 Army soldiers and 4 Army West Point cadets who were denied their religious accommodations. And again, that's a small win, but again, it's just like the screw-taped Salist and not yet Scalia'd Judge Thompson in Arizona, is we can give you a little win. We can look like that you're getting something. And if you put Kyle Rittenhouse's case into that perspective and Nick Sandmann's case, they are individuals, and they were certainly innocent, and so they were found innocent, but not a major win. Now, the Roe versus Wade, that was a major inflection point turnover win. probably came about because they were so abusive to the conservative justices that were coming on the court. And again, what they went through made them more resilient. And so what we are going to go through now is going to make us more resilient. What are we going to go through? Well, there were about 2,500 to 3,000 flights canceled for the weather bomb over Christmas. Now, I will get with Dean Wigginton of the expert on chemtrails. I've had him on Prather Point before to talk about that at some point, of whether it seems very coincidental. We've seen where the hurricanes take right angle turns. I've shown you the U.S. Air Force weather photos and blueprints and patents for all of that. So what did that mean? That meant people were not able to get with their families. They had to stay in place. So it was very disconnective. And there were about 29 to 35 people who froze to death or were killed in New York alone. When I heard that, it reminded me of in Pine Ridge, in the reservations up north. That happens every winter. There's people who freeze to death because they're so poor, or they're stuck in their cars, or they're out drinking, whatever. And so all of this destruction is being mainstreamed now. At the same time, Amazon announces that they are doing deliveries to 2 cities. So the drones will deliver you food once you're locked in your apartments and you can't afford to fly or can't afford to drive because you don't have the right kind of car. They want to put kill switches in all the new cars. This is all part of the plan. Of course, plans always fail. China is revolting. The world is revolting. This is very important to understand. And another very interesting story that came out on Christmas Eve was that there are 3 former U.S. intelligence officials and 2 former U.S. military officials that say the CIA is directing a sabotage campaign with deep moles, people who live inside Russia, against Russia. And this really caught my eye, of course, because it's something I'm very familiar with. And they're saying that there are no American personnel involved on the ground, but there are agency paramilitary officers who are commanding and controlling these situations, and they are assigned to the CIA's Special Activities Center. I've often talked about SAD, the Special Activities Division branch. If you watch 13 Hours, or a lot of ex-military guys have worked for that branch, and they've said that using the CIA SAD guys are going through the European Mission Center, so that gives Allied deniability. It's a cutout, and they are saying that they are targeting a lot of Russia's infrastructure. And so this to me is very interesting because it's kind of going back to more World War II saboteur techniques. The article shows how to blow up rails, really old classical tradecraft stuff now. Of course, the pipeline, which I assessed 100% that we blew up, the Russian pipeline, and Tucker was talking about that, is the most obvious example of that. But it all comes back to resources, because we are going to be resource deficit, because everything comes from China now, and the processing plants are being destroyed, and all the fields are being sabotaged. The cows are being killed, so that it becomes siege warfare. So then what really is this long, detailed argument or or story about the CIA Special Activities Division folks working through the European Activity Center to do sabotage in Russia. And of course, the 2014, they're saying this kicked off from the 2014 Crimea invasion by Putin. Of course, Obama went into Ukraine in 2005 to start the biolabs. That's really what all that started about. But it says U.S. intelligence started a robust training program for Ukrainian special operations forces, and it's likely that these forces are leading the effort to sabotage operations in Crimea and in Russia now. So that's very, very crucial and key to what's going on, because that shows, again, why the Russians have attacked. But then what is the point, though, of third generation kinetic sabotage operations that really had their day and went out more in World War II? Well, in America, we're certainly seeing that. We're seeing a shortage of everything everywhere, so that we will turn then to the GMO modified crops, so the vaccine lettuce, the GMO, the vaccine cattle, all of that as well. But it's also more insidious and I think and ingenious than that, because this then allows the globalists and China to turn again the two, as America, Russia, and China, against each other. And again, this is a way to continue to get America and Russia to destroy each other. Well, why America to Russia? Well, because China wants that. That's why China is supporting Russia and America against each other, so that China is the survivor. China is failing in itself, though. But then again, the global Kabbalists who don't want any borders, that's why the cargo containers are being removed from the border. That's why the illegals, people are talking about Title 42 still standing. That's totally irrelevant. Whether they get rid of Title 42 or they keep Title 42, it's totally irrelevant, because they are just continuing to swarm, to invade by immigration, by illegal immigration, not undocumented, illegal, to destroy borders, so that the nation state falls. The day of the nation state, as far as Schwab and Yuval Harari are concerned, is over. It's now transnational corporations and cartels that control the world by regions, by markets, via big tech and big box and big pharma. That's why the push for all the jabs, for control mechanisms to track everybody. Remember on previous shows, I talked about, we don't need to know what you're saying. Well, we just need to track your movements, because there's officials who said, hey, we kill people based upon their movements, their patterns of life. Intelligence operates very much on patterns of life. So this is very much what is happening. And this is why also I talked about last week is James Meek, the journalist who was covering the Operation Pineapple recovery of American children and families and our allies, and especially trained Afghanistan Special Operations Forces, went back into Afghanistan to rescue Americans and our allies. And he was going to have a book and a movie coming out about that, and that disappeared. That went away because they disappeared him. The FBI rolled up and arrested him. So they are rolling these folks up. This is going into their round up and roll up the resistance phase, while we are still in the build the resistance phase. And so this is going to be a very rough time that is coming. But an entire battalion of German Puma tanks failed to pass its latest drill. This is very significant for all of us who were in the military. We all remember the Fulda Gap and how the Soviet tanks were going to roll through the Fulda Gap. We had to stop them at the Fulda Gap. And everybody trained for the full to get. The only thing is, it never happened because tank warfare went out with the Blitzkrieg in World War II with the Nazis. The new Nazis are in Ukraine. They are still using pharmaceuticals, even more so for influence operations. But that is what is happening now. So I hope all of this makes sense to you and that you will have ears to see and ears to see. Sorry, just recovered. Ears to listen, eyes to see. Just like I encouraged a lot of you to join me on the ChristChaplaincy.com to understand my perspective on all of this, because it's an outside the box perspective. If you keep your inside the box perspective, you and your family are not going to survive this because this is a new form of warfare, and they are trying to wage silent decimation, silent Holocaust against everyone, just like Bigfoot and the Wounded Knee massacre there that you're seeing. That's a United States soldier in the back. That's a Dakota, former United States Marine, leading this now. So they get it. We are going to have to outlove them. There will be times when kinetic violence is righteous and required, but that's not how we will win. And I'm not advocating anything illegal, immoral, unethical, or violent. All of the left does continually, blatantly, and overtly and openly because it's working for them for now. But in the coming chaos, in the coming great dark, in the coming great call, great kill-off, it won't work for them. And that is how we will win. So we are not always winning. And certainly with the failure of Lake and Fincham's lawsuits, we are not winning there, but we will win. But winning is difficult, demanding, and always expensive. But history proves that tyrants always fall and tyranny always fails. Graphene is not in our DNA. Freedom is. But freedom is never given. It must be earned, fought for, and won. So fear not. God bless. Keep the faith and hold fast. We will win. But we must take it. So God bless. Hope you had a wonderful Christmas. Talk to you very soon.